American hip-hop group Migos was all the rage in the 2010s. Their contribution to rap music remains influential to this day, and no one can deny the star power of this trio. Unfortunately, on 1st November 2022, rapper Takeoff died after being fatally shot in Houston, and after a long time in mourning, his cousin Offset has finally broken his silence. In this video, we'll talk about the beautiful tribute he left for the departed. First up, Offset pays his tribute to late Migos bandmate Takeoff.
No limit to the money. I picked the gang and took a flight across the country. I took the wait to keep the ones.
The unfortunate passing of hip-hop artist Takeoff has undoubtedly made our hearts numb. At the young age of 28, the rapper was shot outside a bowling alley in Houston where he was attending a private party with his uncle Quavo. Seeing as how many premature deaths have made headlines recently, the past couple of weeks have been incredibly rough for the music business. Takeoff's death is just another example of how we lost a young life so soon, and we can't even begin to imagine how the entire family must have been coping with this sudden loss. As we know, Takeoff was a part of Migos, the hip-hop group he was a part of with his cousin Offset and Uncle Quavo. Together, these three were not only bonded by blood, but had a shared love for music that brought them together. Shortly before his death, Takeoff talked about a falling out with his cousin Offset, and even though there were disagreements about branching out independently, no one could have seen such an unfortunate end coming. On November 11th, a celebration of life ceremony was held for the Bad and Bougie rapper, where everyone paid their regards, and after breaking his silence, the Ric Flair drip rapper wrote a letter to his cousin as a tribute to the life lost. Offset shared that his heart is shattered, and he has no words to say. He wished that he could hug him one last time and share a laugh and smoke with him. He even expressed his wish to perform with him one last time. Up next, let's briefly talk about Quavo's post for his nephew. During his last moments, Takeoff was with his uncle and Migos bandmate Quavo at the bowling alley where the two were reported to be playing dice. Some unverified sources claim that the shooter opened fire following a dispute over a game of dice, and that when Takeoff was shot, he succumbed to his fatal wounds and was pronounced dead at the scene. In one of the 911 recordings, we heard Quavo's voice asking a nearby nurse on the scene what she needs to help his nephew, but unfortunately, the late rapper could not survive the penetrating gunshot wound to his head. Seeing one of the people you've grown up with die such a tragic death is something we can't even imagine going through. To bear such a loss and power through the pain must have required immense bravery from Quavo. Less than a month before his death, Takeoff had released a collab album only built for Infinity Links on October 7th, which makes this sudden death even more depressing. Quavo's beautiful tribute was a roller coaster of emotions. He took us all the way back to their childhood, where Takeoff always looked up to Quavo and followed him every step of the way. Not only that, but he also shared their dreams of being tag team partners in WWE, and also talked about how, while he was the quietest person in the room, he was also the funniest. The duo were often called Unc and Few because of how inseparable they always were, and it was a joy to see them together. So to say that this tribute combined with Offset's made us cry would be a huge understatement. Coming up, others have also expressed their sorrow over Takeoff's death. From both the tributes by Offset and Quavo, it's pretty heartwarming to see how they both talked about their bandmate. It's clear how much his death has affected them, and it's truly upsetting to see that a part of them has been lost forever. Fans and celebrities alike also came forward pouring out their support for the rapper. After processing the initial shock of the sudden death, a number of people posted messages of remembrance and tributes to Takeoff. Jewel Wicker, Teen Vogue's interim manager, wrote about how Take was the one who convinced his uncle to start rapping. It was this moment that completely changed the rap scene and established the flow of rap. One fan also wrote that they weren't kidding when they said that 90% of the rappers that blew up after 2014 owe it to the Migos flow, which was really the Takeoff flow. Political commentator Bakari Sellers also mourned the rapper's death, saying that too many black men are not living to be old. Fans on Twitter also shared their favorite memories of the trio jamming to Whitney Houston's I Wanna Dance With Somebody on Carpool Karaoke with James Corden, which now just makes our hearts ache. Up next, we'll talk about the permanent legacy the late rappers left behind.
Like I'm turning the tiger. I'm beating the black on me mind. Lot of you niggas they copy. From my closet, Versace.
As we talked about at the start of the video, Migos has been an uber-successful group in the hip-hop music scene. Billboard even recognized it as the group that not only influenced pop culture, but also the entire English language by bringing forward their North Atlanta roots to mainstream music. Up next, we'll talk about the permanent legacy the late rappers left behind. First up, Takeoff's impact beyond Migos.
Stay all on my dinner plate. Your main beat says she wanna make a sex tape. Rich nigga, I can never be a
While the trio might have broken up in October 2022, we still can't deny how they changed the trajectory of hip-hop music. After they were formed in 2008, together the three of them always incorporated an effortless coolness and attention-grabbing complexity into their rhymes. Their 2013 hit, Versace, had taken the group to a new level of cultural significance and marked the start of a decade full of hits. Now, as we talked about earlier, Takeoff was actually the first person who convinced Quavo to pursue music. Back then, Offset and Quavo had nothing to do with hip-hop or the rap genre altogether. The other two were more inclined toward football, but it was the youngest member's consistent efforts that gave birth to Migos. As a kid, Takeoff always tried to make it big in music. While his uncle was at football practice in high school, the rapper would make tunes and play them for Quavo when he came back home. Eventually, the trio started making music together, but it was Takeoff who was the brains behind the clever rhymes and catchy lines. In fact, that's exactly where he got his name from. Not only had he extended his creativity to the band, but as a gifted lyricist and master of syncopation, Takeoff's style of music has proven that hip-hop's here to stay forever, no matter what. Following up, the rapper was often called the glue of the group. Now, if you've been following up with Migos for a while, you'd know that the group had parted ways earlier in 2022 following some internal tensions. Shortly before his death, Takeoff expressed his thoughts over the split and said that even though the group didn't work out, he hasn't completely given up. The fact that they're a family remains. That wasn't going to ever change. Quavo also went a little deeper, explaining the rift, saying that their decision to disband had nothing to do with a label or paperwork. He candidly shared that it had something to do with the three brothers, and that's something that's just there for now. Considering how he always saw Migos as more of a duo with him and his nephew Takeoff, it makes you think just how much Take kept everyone together through any disagreements. Even though he was the youngest, he had a certain wisdom to him that none of us could ever discredit. On many occasions, people called him the quietest person in the room, someone who only knew peace and never raised his voice. They say the good die young, and Take certainly had way too much of that in him to take off so early. Last but not least, let's look at how this trio shaped a generation of music.
You can watch us beat the odds. Beat it. This ain't no cat, no facade. Young, rich, and black, and we gon' beat the charge. We gon' I'm spending cash.
Atlanta has always been on the map for hip-hop and is famous for being the birthplace of new ideas, but Migos evolved this reputation like no other and ended up creating a new style that trended all over. Together, the group introduced a triplet rhyme scheme, which is a pattern that has been duplicated by many prominent artists of our generation, like Jay-Z, Drake, and Jay Electronica. Such an influence on the rap scene is mostly unheard of, and even though the hip-hop community gets a bad name, it's groups like Migos that transform what people think about the genre. Their 2017 album Culture further solidified their influence on the sound of rap and Atlanta's culture and broadened trap music and the overall culture beyond music. It's truly tragic to imagine how we might never hear a Migos track with Take's magic touch, and as we hope the deceased and their family gets justice, let's promise to never forget the best rapper in Migos. Fly high, Take. See you on the other side. And that's the wrap on this video, guys. What do you think about Offset's tribute to Takeoff? Let us know what you think in the comment section down below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Until next time, see you soon.